All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lasheena Williams, and so excited to be back here with you all as we continue the conversation on building bridges through fundraising and friend-raising strategies for your nonprofit organization. So, we're going to continue the conversation on the importance of building relationships for your nonprofit organization, along with some strategies to help bring in funds. One of our favorite topic, right, for nonprofits. But I first want to welcome up this week's guest, Robert Jones, to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. Hey,
Hello,
Robert.
how you doing?
Good. Great to have you back on Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. Glad you can join us.
Thank you for that.
Yes, so before we get started, if you don't mind, for those who have not met you yet, sharing a little bit about your background in the nonprofit arena, and we'll get started into the conversation from there.
Okay, so I'm from Chicago, born and raised. I started my career at a Big Four firm, and then after leaving the Big Four firm, I went to like a local family office here in Chicago, and then from there went to a large bank. And the whole time I've been in the charitable space since the beginning of my career. So doing nonprofit tax returns, private foundation returns, and also maybe like these returns we don't really hear often. It's what's called CRUTs. They're
Mhm,
charitable remainder uni trust returns.
mhm.
So I was working on a bunch of those throughout the career as well. So that's the experience that I have. And then about a little over 5.5 years ago, I decided to start my own accounting firm. And I think that you're one of my first clients, actually, Lasheena. Yeah,
Yay!
but time flies. And so
Yes.
I've been on this journey has been, actually amazing, to be honest. I've met some of the, diehards in the nonprofit space, especially people who work very hard for their communities every day. And so I absolutely love it.
Love it. Robert, I don't think we ever talked about, I know we talked about you entering nonprofit arena and working in accounting for nonprofits, but we've never, I believe, talked about why accounting. Um, what I would love to know, what is it about accounting that drove you into that field?
It's funny. When I was younger, I knew I would. Um, even though my mother is not an accountant, she would have been an excellent accountant because she's very, very
Hmm.
good with money. But I knew I would get into some type of business, and
Hmm.
so in my mind, I was thinking, okay, what would always be here? And I was like,
Yeah.
somebody was like, death and taxes. And I was like, okay, I don't want to work with like, death. That sounds terrible.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, let me look into this tax situation.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much how the ball kind of got rolling. I was pretty young when I started thinking about it.
Hmm.
But that's pretty much how it got rolling. Yeah, it's a good question.
Love it. Yeah, I was like, we haven't talked about, like, we talk a lot about the nonprofit accounting,
Yeah,
but not how you just got your love for just accounting as a whole, in numbers.
yeah,
Because not everyone can can,
yeah,
have the patience for numbers. So
very true.
okay. Awesome. So this month's theme is fundraising and friend raising strategies for a nonprofit organization, really emphasizing the importance of relationships and relationship building and how that can help grow your nonprofit organization, along with some strategies to consider when it comes to fundraising. What tips do you have for our viewers?
You know what? I would say from a strategy perspective, you know, I believe, put everything down in paper, right? And so, the first thing is getting with the board and kind of talking about
Hmm.
strategies, talking about tapping into your own resources. Believe it or not, we have all done a level of fundraising in our life without realizing it. I'll give you a prime example. Um, when you get married
Hmm.
and you have a reception, to me, that's a fundraiser. I look at it. Even though you probably don't get back as much as you put in, but
Right.
you're but that's a level of fundraising, right?
Hmm.
Um, I hate to say it, you may even invite people who you think will give you a lot more money than some.
Mhm.
Sad to say, but I did not do that, but I'm not going to go there.
Right.
But we've all done it, whether it is maybe a wedding or a baby shower, for example.
Uh-huh.
We've all done some level of it without calling it that.
Right.
And so, but when you take those same kind of mindset and go, okay, wait a minute, I can only invite 100 people to my opening event for my nonprofit.
Mhm.
Okay, who strategically, who do I want in the room?
Mhm.
Uh, it's not. Don't look at it from an emotional standpoint, but look at it from a strategic standpoint.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, of course, we invite our close friends and family, but we can't invite the third cousins, right? So we
Right.
invite, okay, wait a minute, let me see. These are the kind of people who I want in the room to see what
Mhm.
we're doing. And so that's one level of strategy to kind of
Mhm.
take in for that. Is definitely utilize the board as much as possible too.
Love it, and bringing in those relationships for your events to maximize those events, because I've seen it where organizations have run fundraising events and may not necessarily have had the right, I don't want to say they're not the right people, but for what the goal of
Yes.
for that event was, it may not have been the best people to be able to help them in reaching their goal. And as a result, they end up losing money on those events, which is a risk that a lot of organizations take when hosting, different types of fundraisers.
I'm in agreement. Yes, that's so true. That is so true. Yeah, so we do see that often as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, any other tips when it comes to fundraising and fundraising, especially from a accounting perspective? Have
Mhm.
you seen things where relationships really played a role in the growth of an organization, or like, yeah, so anything where relationships kind of help drive the increase within an organization?
Yeah, very good question. I think sometimes, inviting like local politicians into what you're doing is
Hmm.
really helpful, especially if you're interested in receiving any type of state funding, or county funding, or government
Hmm.
funding, whatever the case. Um, they can kind of speak on your behalf when it's budget time,
Hmm.
where to allocate funds. And so if they see, okay, let's allocate some of these funds to some of the nonprofits in your community, they can
Hmm.
speak up for you in that matter and say, I do know this nonprofit in, Orlando. They're doing this, this, and this. I had a site visit with them once,
Hmm.
right? So that's like saying, oh, okay, even though that person did not at the moment give you a check, that
Hmm.
relationship can go a lot deeper on other levels where they can speak about you in rooms that maybe you're not into.
Yep. I love it. And I'm gonna talk a little bit, especially because we have that relationship where you're the accountant for our nonprofit organization. Together we've been able to kind of see the growth over the years with the
Mhm.
organization. And I lend a lot of that to relationship and relationship building. Some of that being in the actually this morning I had a meeting with a donor, and they just released a fund. They just, it's a local foundation, they released some funding. But interestingly, we met, I literally sent an email, hey, I would just love to talk to you and just let you know about our organization and that we're here, not seeking any money, nothing like that, just want to connect with you. And then they had a funding opportunity that opened up right after, literally 2 weeks after our conversation. So we applied for it, and at that point, they were familiar with who we became friends. Like after that initial conversation, we were friends. So now they know who we were.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. When you were speaking, it made me realize. I love when you said, "I just want you to see what we're doing. I'm not necessarily looking for funding," and I think that's really important
Hmm.
because you have to, especially from a private foundation perspective. Their job is to give away money. So
Hmm.
it's not, you don't have to necessarily walk in going, I want some money.
Right.
but that's their job anyway. Actually, the obligation, excuse me, from the government is to give away some of their money that they raise and
Mhm.
make. And so I think that's such a nice segue to say, no, I just need you to see what we're doing. And it's the funny
Mhm.
thing is, from a relationship perspective, even if they decided I don't want to give them anything, they're not doing exactly what I have a passion for.
Mhm.
Those people are in rooms with other private foundation folks.
Yep.
So they go, I didn't want to give them anything, but you know what? You love working with kids. Hey, let me introduce you
Yep.
to Lasheena. Like, you'd be very surprised how that works, And so
Yep.
that's why that's really important to just invite them out and just say, I just want you to see it. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you get an additional you're right, you get an additional champion for your
Right.
organization. Whether they can help you now, later, or whichever, they'll bring you into rooms, yeah, that you may not physically be in. So I love that you brought that up. So that time that you spend, that email that you sent, or that phone call you made to try to set up those meetings, the time that you spent with that potential
Mhm.
donor is not doesn't go to waste, because some way it'll come back. So
It
I love
is.
that you touched on that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Love it. Anything else when it comes to building relationships, or any fundraising strategies for nonprofits that you've been kind of seeing, especially now? I'm sure when you initially entered the arena of working with nonprofits in accounting, there's probably some trends then, but I'm sure a lot of those trends probably are different now.
Yeah.
Is there some things that you see that are common amongst nonprofits that's happening to help build their fundraising strategies or build relationships?
Yeah, good question. One of the things too, and this everything kind of ties together. So I don't mean to
Hmm.
jump to accounting like that. But one of the things too is knowing what you need. So
Hmm.
from a strategy perspective, if I am going to invite a private foundation to come in and they ask me a question, how much do you need?
Hmm.
If you don't know that number, that's a real problem. So if you say whatever you can give us, that's not gonna suffice. But if you actually have something in mind to say, $50,000 would help us to teach 100 students this,
Hmm.
and here's how we would use it. Like that sounds more realistic. It sounds very responsible. Number one,
Hmm.
and always keep that in mind. Sounding responsible is important in this space. So I would say from that perspective, have that in mind before
Yeah,
you talk to them.
as well.
Yes. Yeah. And I would even
Hmm.
say having a one pager that kind of says something like that, where you can even put,
Mm.
this is our current need, this is how much it would cost, and this is the expenses associated with it. Insurance, like for a van, for example, we
Yep.
insure, gas for a year, um,
Hmm.
things of that nature. Now they can really see, like, oh, okay, if I actually gave this, I know exactly, like, I fulfilled a need for them versus I just gave them some money and I don't know, they spent it on meals and entertainment or something weird.
Right.
So like if they see it
Yep.
from that perspective, that would be ideal.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
Love
would say
it.
too, not being afraid of
Hmm.
of of asking, of
Hmm.
saying, I mean, you start whether you start a for-profit business or a nonprofit, you need people money,
Hmm.
right? The
Yep.
nonprofit
Yep.
space, has been pegged to people begging, and I hate that it's called that sometimes. But
Hmm.
you're not technically begging anyone. You're strategically fulfilling a need of the community.
Hmm.
So don't look at it like I don't want to ask people for money. I'm like, you probably shouldn't have started a nonprofit.
Right.
um,
Right.
but
Yep.
since you did start this, you want to say to yourself, I'm fulfilling the need of the community. It's not just
Hmm.
not for me. So look at it from that
Yep.
way too. Yeah.
I love that you said that. And we have not talked about this because I went through that the initial years of the organization. I went through that where it literally felt like I'm asking people, like for things. Then it's like literally when the epiphany came, wait, this isn't for you, and it never was about you or for you. I was able to kind of move myself out the way, and now it's like, hey, look, these kids remembering your mission, why you're doing what you're doing, kind of will fuel um your acts. So I love that you said that, the community has a need, your organization's able to fill that need with the investment and support
Mhm.
of, others. So I love that you talked about that, shifting your mindset from it's a, I need, to remembering that it's not about you, it's really about the community and, the need that the community has and how your organization helps fill that.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Awesome.
Yes. Love it. Anything else before we wrap up today's conversation?
Yeah, keep working hard.
Mhm.
Keep you know, putting out things that could, that could help, like emailing foundations, going to different networking events, different things of that nature. If you just get yourself
Mhm.
out there as much as possible, and
Mhm.
utilize your time, strategically, not just
Mhm.
throwing it in the air, but just utilize your time in a way that's beneficial.
I love that. And really quick, because you talked about the foundations, and I remember you and I had a conversation. You was like, "Hey, have you explored foundations? Do you mind just sharing some of the benefits of looking into support from foundations?"
Well, one thing I love, depending on the size of the gift that they give,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of red tape.
Mhm. Yep.
They either give to you or they don't.
Mhm.
So, when you start going after that type of funding, there's not a lot of a lot of them don't ask for a lot of reporting requirements either.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a powerful benefit. No one really has time for all that reporting. So
Mhm.
that takes a lot of work, a lot of time. So, but if you can get
Yep.
funding that's unrestricted, and they know, maybe they'll ask you like, "Hey, in a year, can you just call us and talk to us about this?"
Mhm.
Um, but for the most part, it's I don't want to call it easy money, but for the most part, it's it's just not a lot of red tape attached to it.
Mhm. And
So
you're likely to, like you mentioned, to find some unrestricted funds that can help with building the capacity of the organization. 'Cause otherwise, if you have a lot of programming funds, then you don't have anything to cover the things to keep the lights on for the organization. So
yeah, very true, very true.
awesome. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming back on. Can you share if anyone wants to get in touch with you,
Good
how
question.
they can do that?
Yeah. So I'm on I would say I'm on Instagram. It's just RP Tax Associates. But my email is probably that's I check those as they come in. It's
Hmm.
Robert at rptaxassociates.com. So that's Robert
Awesome.
at rptaxassociates.com. So if you have any questions whatsoever, definitely let me know.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Robert, for coming on once again. And thank you all, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.